we plant a lot as well, especially native ones and pollinators. So we do a lot of tree plantings. Let's see if I can get rid of our box. Other things that keep Toledo Lucas County beautiful does is litter reduction. If you drive around right now anywhere, you're probably going to see lots of litter. Litter is something that is hard to pick up, it seems, in the wintertime. Nobody wants to go out and pick up litter when it's cold out. So right now, especially if you're driving around any of the on-ramps and off-ramps, the litter is just everywhere. We actually have a program coming up on May 6th called Ramp It Up. It'll be a one-day litter cleanup focused just on on-ramps and off-ramps. And then the other big one we do is called the Toledo Litter League. It is a competition, kind of baseball themed. We partner with the Mud Hens. We end the season in August with a celebration at Mud Hen game. And we actually compete with the city of Columbus, and this year Dayton has challenged us as well to see which city can collect the most litter. We get beat every year, but that's okay. It's still a win-win. It's a good competition. I like to think that we get beat because we have less litter than Columbus. It's probably more so that we are a lot smaller than Columbus, but maybe we have a chance against Dayton. We'll see. And then the last one we do is waste reduction. And a lot of people think waste reduction is just recycling, improving recycling, but it's a lot more than that, which we'll get into a little bit more during the presentation. Being composting, being reducing. We are good. We're recording. Yes. Okay. So let's get into it a little bit more. Who was here last month? Was it last month that we talked more about greenhouse? Good. So most people were here. It looks like that we're here for the greenhouse gas emissions, the global warming presentation. And why these two are kind of connected together is because it really is connected together. So I'll give a quick little review of global warming, and I'm not going to get into the science of it. We got a little bit more of the science of it last time, but we pretty much all know that heat radiation is coming from the sun. It's entering our atmosphere. Some of it is good. We want the Earth to be warm. We just don't want it to be too warm. So we don't want to trap all of the heat here. And as we get more and more greenhouse gas emissions, we're trapping more and more heat in our atmosphere, and the Earth is getting warmer. Today doesn't seem like it. 2 days ago, maybe it seemed like it a little bit more. It's beautiful 2 or 3 days ago, but then cooled off again. But why is it important that we're talking about global warming? And apologize if this one's hard to see with a podium, but when we think about heat-related fatalities, everybody thinks massive things like tornadoes and hurricanes. This graph right here, the first bar, if you can't see it, that's okay because it's tiny. It is the number of deaths annually or due to hurricanes. And then the next one is even smaller. It's just a little tiny line. It is tornadoes. And then our giant massive line is extreme heat. Another interesting graph on the other side is as the Earth warms, you've probably heard that there are more and more blackouts. You hear about blackouts with the power grid in Texas, out in California. A lot of that is due to people cranking up their air conditioners, a lot more people using energy, especially when it's hot, in hot areas, and that is causing blackouts. If there was a multi-day blackout event during a very hot time, about 3% of the population of Atlanta would need medical attention. 50% of the population of Phoenix, Arizona. Huge amount of people are going to be without power, without a way to cool themselves down. And as we continue to get warmer and warmer, it's going to cause more and more problems. This is a quick recap of what we need. People think about global warming. It is a massive problem. What do they do individually? We'll get into that, but there are massive things that need to change within the government, within business, within technology. But the one I really want to focus on is individual behavior, changing kind of individual social norms and culture to improve what you can do as an individual. So here's what we focus on. We focus on food, transportation, homes, and waste. And I know you're all here for correct recycling, which we'll get to. But let's talk about food real quick. Food is responsible for about 8% of the greenhouse gas emissions that are created in the world. That is from growing and producing crops and livestock. That is from transportation of food from one place to another. And also, when you throw away food and it goes to a landfill, it does create methane gas. If food waste alone, just food waste was its own country, it would be the third largest producer of greenhouse gas emissions. And that is from it slowly decomposing in a landfill. You don't want food waste to go to a landfill. What can we do? We can eat our leftovers. My wife doesn't like to, but I pick up the slack. Plan your meals before you go out to the store. Store your food properly. If you're going to Costco, if you're going to Sam's Club, make sure you have room in your freezer before you make that trip, because you're going to get an extra loaf of bread and a whole lot of other things that you need to freeze, because you can't eat Costco food fast enough before it goes bad. If you're going to Kroger, avoid the buy one, get one free. If you're going to get a bag of lettuce and then buy one, get one free, you probably don't need the free one. You're not going to get to it in time. It's going to go bad. So try to eat a plant-rich diet as well. I am not a vegetarian. I am not a vegan, but we do try to focus on a little bit more of a plant-rich diet, meaning that we cut out meat occasionally, once a week, twice a week, whatever you can do, whatever you're comfortable with, it will help, especially red meat. Creates a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. Buy local, that's got some health benefits. Also, it cuts down on the transportation and compost your food. The next one was transportation. So the big graph right here is all greenhouse gas emissions that are produced. And then this blue section right here is from transportation. Most of that being from driving your car, not as much from flying. Flying kind of gets a bad rap, but it doesn't happen nearly as much as driving your car. So it has got a much smaller section. But for a typical two-car family, 50% of the greenhouse gases that they are creating come from transportation. So another big area where we can cut back. And how do we do that? Active transportation is fantastic. Bike and walk. If you can take public transportation or carpool, also good as well. If you can work from home, that's fantastic. If you're not working from home or not working, that's okay, that's good too. But if you are not working from home, maybe you can suggest a day or two from working from home. It's the right thing to do for the environment. Make a smart switch. Make a smart switch when you are buying a new car. I am not ready to buy a new car yet, but when I am ready, I'm going to look at that EV option, that car that's going to be a lot more environmentally friendly. And I'm definitely not looking to buy a new home, but if I could cut down on my commute, that would be helpful. So buying a house, living closer to where you work is good, and service your car regularly. The next one was homes. A lot of our greenhouse gas emissions are coming from heating and cooling our homes, but also other appliances. So if we can cut down on heating and cooling, fantastic. Buying energy efficient appliances. You can't really get away with not buying energy efficient appliances right now. All of them are. So that's a good step in the right direction. Other things that you can do, make sure your house is well insulated. Seal up your windows, your doors if they are drafty. Open and close curtains to regulate heat, let the sunshine in, or open and close windows to regulate heat. Plant trees, good for the environment in lots and lots of ways, but also good for your energy use. They create shade, but they also are a good windbreak, protecting your house from both heat and cold. Replace your HVAC filters. Surge protectors are good, or just unplug appliances when you're not using them. Wash your clothes in cold water. Programmable thermostat is a great idea as well. But here's the last one. The last one is waste reduction. And we all learned probably back in 3rd grade, 4th grade to reduce, reuse, recycle. And we teach those in that order. You want to reduce first, reuse what you can, and then recycle the rest. But there are other R words that we like to focus on as well, refuse being one of them. So refuse your single-use plastics, your forks and your knives and your straws. If you're going to a restaurant, it's hard sometimes to catch that waiter or waitress to say, no, I don't need a straw, before they throw it on the table. Once they throw it on the table, they're not going to put that back in their pile of unused straws. So it's now wasted. So try to refuse single-use plastics, get a reusable water bottle. Repair is a good one. Back in the day, and some of you maybe remember back in the day, if we had a hole in our pants, we sewed it back up again. If our appliance broke, we fixed it. Our refrigerator, we fixed it. Now we don't even wait for things to break. We don't even wait for that hole in our pants before we're throwing those pants away. We're getting the next new ones. We always want the new next cell phone, the next new tablet, the next new computer, the next new TV, and we're getting rid of the old ones before they're even done for. So we have a very disposable culture at this point. We're not repairing things like we used to. Rot is just compost, which we will talk a little bit more about to deal with some of that food waste. But here's the problem, some big numbers. There are 8 billion humans on Earth. 250 million tons of trash is generated in the United States every single year. 1 million plastic bags are used. That is not every year. That is not every day. That is not every hour. That is actually every minute. Every minute across the world, 1 million plastic bags are used. So think how long we're sitting in this room, how many minutes that is. That's millions and millions of plastic bags. 18.2 trillion pounds of plastic has been produced, and it's still out there in some form. I don't even know how many zeros are in 18.2 trillion, but there's a lot of them. The average person holds onto a piece of garbage for about 12 paces. If they don't see a garbage can in sight, they get lazy, they drop it on the ground, it becomes litter. That's the average person, not any of us. Litter costs the United States about $11.5 billion annually. That's sending people out to go pick up other people's litter, mostly along highways. 35 million tons of food is wasted in the United States. That's about 40% of our food. So if you do go to the grocery store and you get 3 bags of groceries, the equivalent of what, or the equivalent of more than 1 bag is going straight to the landfill. Food waste has grown by 204% since the 1960s. 2015, we threw away about $450 billion worth of clothing because we were done with it and it went in the garbage. And it isn't a recyclable item. You can recycle textiles, not in your curbside recycling, which we'll talk about. But right now in the world, only about 1% of textiles are recycled. A couple things that we've seen have some good benefits. This is a program that Europe did recently. It was a Love Food, Hate Waste program. And they did some of the things that I already mentioned. They got rid of buy one, get one free. They had smaller and packaging for a lot of their food. And they had noticeable and easily understandable use by dates. Does this frustrate anybody else? If something says Best Buy, I assume that it lasts forever. I will eat it forever if it says Best Buy. I don't care if it's not as best as it could be. So Best Buy dates confuse me. If it has a clear use by date, I will follow that rule within about a week or so. But yeah, I mean, we want to have our food last as long as we can so that we have time to eat it. All this confusing use by, sell by date. What's a sell by date? I don't even know what that means. Here's another thing. We said reduce, reuse, recycle. This is a nice slide for reducing. Prior to the pandemic, prior to COVID, we saw a lot of people in a very good habit of taking their reusable bags to the grocery store. That habit has not returned for most people. You go to the grocery store now, it is very few people that have started using their reusable bags again, and that is a habit that needs to come back. We need to use our reusable bags. You can also avoid getting extra bags at the grocery store. Your onions do not need to be in a plastic bag. They have a pretty good skin on them. They can roll around in your cart and they're going to be okay. So avoid getting some of those extra bags that you don't need. Pack your food in a reusable container. And if you can, use a glass container. If you are using plastic, don't microwave your food in a plastic container. Even if it says microwave safe, that just means it's not going to melt in your microwave. You are getting lots and lots of plastic chemicals in your food if you're microwaving your food in plastic. There's those straws again. Say no to straws. Say no to disposable cutlery. Reusable water bottles and coffee cups. Have a home cooked meal. That's nice. That sounds great. Really, that just means we see a lot of waste coming out of the food service industry, the fast food industry, or just taking food home from a restaurant. A little bit more about composting. We already said 1 in 3 bags of groceries get thrown away. It is filling our landfills. Landfills are a resource. We want them to last as long as possible. The city of Toledo has the Hoffman Road landfill. It is estimated to have about 40 to 60 more years worth of life in it before it is full. We can't put anything else in our landfill for the city of Toledo. We have to find a new place to put in our landfill. We don't want lots and lots of landfills everywhere, so we want to make that landfill last as long as possible. We do that by sending less stuff in. We recycle better and we compost better. But we also talk about food waste creating greenhouse gas emissions, removing nutrients from our soil. It takes a lot of nutrients and a lot of work to grow food. Last October, Lucas County Beautiful collected about 60,000 pounds of pumpkins. Something that this random thing that's grown for absolutely no reason whatsoever. It sits on a porch for a month and a half, and then you throw it away. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of nutrients to do that. No reason to send 60,000 pounds of pumpkins to the landfill. We got to compost it and back out to farm fields and greenhouses. And using a chemical fertilizer, not that it is the sole contributor to algae blooms, but we do need to be aware of algae blooms in Toledo. We do not want another water crisis. If we are using actual compost from food waste that holds on to its nutrients a lot better, there's almost no way to over-fertilize with actual compost. So it holds on to its nutrients and lets it go slowly instead of a chemical fertilizer, which after a rain or two is going to wash right into the river anyway. Recycling, finally there. Here's recycling. Why is it important? It also saves space in our landfills, uses less natural resources, like less water, less minerals, less wood, creates less pollution. So creating a new thing creates a lot of pollution. Creating a new water bottle or a new plastic water bottle, new aluminum can creates lots of pollution. Taking an aluminum can and recycling it into a new aluminum can makes a lot less pollution. Also saves a lot of energy and has economic benefits. It creates jobs locally. It also keeps resources locally. If we are recycling our plastic water bottles locally, we are not relying on another country to send us oil to create new plastic. How are we doing in Ohio? The Ohio EPA estimates that a landfill, the landfill where all your garbage goes, is actually about 25% paper. 3% glass, 5% metal, 13% plastic, and about 7% other things that are recyclable. So that is stuff that's ending up in the landfill. And so about 53% of our landfill doesn't even belong there. Wood yard trimmings are another 14%, and food waste is 17%. So now these are compostable items. That's another 31%. So we're up to 84% of our landfill could go someplace else to recycling or composting. Only about 15% is actual true garbage. What we wanted to do instead is go to what we call a MRF. MRF is a recycling facility. Most people think that when their recyclables get picked up, it goes to a recycling facility. It's kind of a misnomer to call it a recycling facility. Nothing gets recycled there. It just gets sorted. It's a sorting facility. So then they have all their aluminum here and all their glass here and all their paper and cardboard over here. And then that stuff goes out to other places to get actually recycled. Let's see if I can actually play this video. And it gives you a little bit more information about what happens at a sorting facility. It is playing on the laptop. Let's see if I can move it. There you are. And let's see if I can do sound. Nope. Should have tested that ahead of time. Let's see if I can narrate. All right, so your recyclables come in and they are just unloaded on a conveyor belt. And as you know, at your home, you are putting all of your recyclables in one tote. So they are single stream recyclables. And you can see already that it's very automated, and some of the heavier stuff is right away falling back down again, where some of the lighter stuff, your papers, your plastics are moving up. So they use a lot of magnets, but also gravity, a lot of optical sorting, which we'll probably see in just a minute. There are people who work on a sorting line. The quote somewhere that I've heard is, if you ever worked on a sorting line at a recycling facility, you would recycle much, much better at home, because the things that people are putting in a recycling bin are sometimes pretty atrocious. And then you get the sad face, right? So we see a lot of people, for some reason, doing food waste. We get dirty diapers, we get a lot of cigarette butts, we get ammunition, bowling balls, who knows? So here's another one that's using magnets, again, to get a lot of that aluminum out, a lot of the metal. Eddy currents are kind of an opposite of a magnet, where the magnets are repelling some of the items as well and putting them in a different location. with the optical sorters are getting more and more sophisticated. You used to have to recycle glass by color. Optical sorters can now separate glass by color at many MRF facilities. Same thing with plastics. We'll talk a little bit more about plastics, but they all have different numbers on them, 1 through 7. Your optical sorters are getting to the point now where they can figure out what type of plastic each item is coming through the conveyor belts, and they'll sort it automatically as well. So when we talk about recyclables in your curbside recycling being loose, there's one thing that we tell people all the time is your recyclables have to be loose. That means not a plastic bag. It is because when they do get to a MRF, material recovery facility, they have to be loose for all of those machineries to be able to push them in the right direction and make them get in the right spot. So that in the end, we have a pallet of aluminum going back to OmniSource or Kripke. We have a pallet of glass going over to OI or Libby Glass. We have a pallet of paper going to Pratt Industries, and that is where it's all actually recycled into new things. Let's get back. Perfect. So a little bit more about recycling. What should we be recycling? So here is bottles and jars, and I'll go with aluminum cans as well as glass bottles on this slide. We want them to be clean. So we want them to be rinsed out. And if they have a cap or a lid, we want the cap or lid to be back on again. Now, when I do this, I always get somebody who says, I'm not going to recycle my peanut butter jars, my spaghetti sauce jars, because they're too hard to clean out. I do occasionally get somebody that will raise their hand down and say they run all their recyclables through the dishwasher. Both are, you don't have to run your recyclables through the dishwasher. They don't have to be pristine. What I like to say is we can handle a little bit of food residue in the recycling industry. So a smudge of peanut butter, some crusted spaghetti sauce around the rim, that is okay. 2 inches of spaghetti sauce, not so much. So rinse it out 2 or 3 times, shake out the excess water, put the cap or lid back on. And the cap or lid is like a plastic water bottle with a plastic lid. Absolutely put the lid back on, but also a mixed container, like a pickle jar, glass jar with a metal lid, put the lid back on. The question is always lids. Why lids? Well, we saw the video. This is a little bit more of a actually what things look like in a MRF, a material recycling facility. So again, that top left, some of the light stuff is floating across the top. The heavier stuff is falling through. We have the optical sorters. These things are moving so fast I can't even see what they are in the top right there. But the optical sorters do know what they are and they're pushing them in the right direction. And then some of the workers. But if a single cap gets in this system, it is too small to end up where it's supposed to be. They get just kind of thrown around randomly and they end up contaminating the wrong spots. So the rule of thumb is if it's smaller than a credit card, it is garbage. It's too small unless you can connect it to something. There's a process for crushing the glass pickle jar and pulling the metal out. But if the lid is by itself, it's going to get pinged around and start going in the wrong direction. My wife tries to recycle more Splenda packets in the morning. That's too small. It's just going to blow around. If I wanted to make it to the sorting facility, it'll blow off the truck. So again, credit cards are smaller, put it in the trash unless it's connected to something. So if you are walking through your house and you find a plastic water bottle and there's no lid, that's okay. You can obviously still recycle the plastic water bottle. But 3 days later, when you find the lid by itself, now it's too small, throw it in the garbage. Paper cardboard. Absolutely, yes, recycle it. And there's been some controversy. I don't know if controversy is the right word. Some discussion about food waste on cardboard. The example there is pizza boxes. What do you do with a pizza box? And it goes back to the same kind of rule of thumb. If it's food residue versus food waste. If it's got a little bit of grease on it, it is recyclable. Put it in the recycling bin. If it is caked with grease and you can kind of like poke it and the grease comes out of the fiber, maybe that's too much. Maybe that can go in the garbage. If it's got pepperoni and cheese stuck to it, that's food waste, throw it in the garbage. But a little bit of grease is okay. You can handle that. Even if it is really caked with grease, usually the lid's okay. At least rip the lid off and put the lid in the recycling bin. Cartons, Yes, recycle them, same thing as before, rinse them out, put the lid of the cap back on. If you have curbside recycling, throw it right in. If you're going to a county drop-off location where they have all of the recycling bins in a row, usually behind Kroger, these get a little bit confusing because at a county drop-off location, you have to sort your paper in one bin, your cardboard in one bin, and then your plastic, aluminum, and glass in another bin. And a carton seems like maybe paper and maybe cardboard, but those are both incorrect. It has to go in with the other containers, your glass, aluminum, and plastic. And that's just because the carton does have a wax coating on it, and it needs to be recycled a little bit differently than just regular paper and cardboard. So put it in with your containers. Plastic. Yes, recycle it if you can find the recycling symbol. Recycling symbol is your arrow triangle, got a number in it. We want it to be recycled. We'll talk a little bit more about plastic, but for now, all I want you to know is find the recycling symbol, rinse it out a few times, put the cap or lid back on. That seems simple enough, right? Plastic, aluminum, glass, paper, cardboard, glass in most cases. There's a few communities that are pulling out of glass. If you live in Perrysburg, you can't recycle glass in your curbside recycling anymore. But yeah, I mean, it should be simple. Here's the problem though, kind of goes back to those big numbers that I showed you. Back in the 1960s, 1970s, we were reducing, we were repairing, we were not making that much stuff. But we keep on making more and more of every single thing that we can make. And it's just becoming more and more of a disposable lifestyle. So that's part of the problem. What else are we seeing? We're seeing some issues with the single stream recycling. Back in the day, again, maybe some of you again remember back in the day, recycling was kind of hard. You had to be intentional about what you were doing, but you did it correctly. And the way that looked was in your garage, you probably had 3 or 4 bins. And one was for glass, and one was for aluminum, and one was for paper and cardboard. The bins weren't big, so your cardboard was packed down and smushed flat, and the bins didn't have lids on them, so everything was nice and clean. But gone are our clean and organized bins. In their place, most people have that roll coat dumpster for single stream recycling. And it's just so much easier to make mistakes when it's single stream recycling. You're throwing everything in there. The other thing is wish cycling. There's actually a study done by Consumer Reports recently that 44% of people who are very concerned about the environment, people who want to do the right thing, put things in their recycling bin that should not be there because they hope it will get recycled. They want to feel good about getting rid of it. And so they put it in the recycling bin. It causes problems down the line. If it is not accepted, if it is a kid's plastic toy or a coat hanger or a 5-gallon bucket, those are not recyclable plastics. I wish they were, but you can't put them in your recycling bin. And the last one is just confusion. So we talked a little bit about how we're doing in Ohio. Here's how we're doing locally, mostly in Toledo. In 2016, it was our worst year with contamination. We were at 44% contamination. So 44% of everything that people were putting in their recycling bins wasn't even recyclable. 44% is close enough to 50 to say almost half. Almost half of everything that people were recycling, not even recyclable. We had a company that was called Recollect up in Michigan that was taking our recyclables. They called the city of Toledo. They said, we don't want your recyclables anymore. They're taking us too long to sort through. Recycling is an industry. We want it to be profitable. We want the recycling industry to make money. The more money they make, the more things they're going to recycle. When they're spending all their time and money sorting through garbage, it costs money for them. So they said, we don't want it unless you clean up your act. At that point, we had lots of press conferences and educational campaigns, and the city actually hired people to go around and inspect people's recycling. They would open up the lid, they would look in there. If they found some contamination, they were handing out little oops cards that said oops on it, and they would circle the thing that was the contamination, they'd leave it on their door. And we actually saw about a 10% reduction in contamination in the neighborhoods where the inspectors went. People wanted to do the right thing. They just needed that extra, almost door-to-door education to know what they were doing wrong. But at the time, about 22,000 tons of recyclables were being collected. 30%, 7% was ending up in the landfill because of how contaminated it was, and it was costing us a lot of money. Here's part of the issue.
Excuse me, Adam.
Yes.
We have a comment that it's hard for people to hear you.
Okay.
So
Maybe if I stand back here. Here's part of the issue. Here we are in Toledo, and the red dot is our landfill. We've got some recycling drop-off locations all around the city of Toledo and Lucas County. We do have a green little dot out here. This is actually a food waste composter, which I like to put on there. It's out in Wasion. I'll talk about that maybe a little bit more. But most of our recyclables go all the way over to Oberlin, which is past Sandusky. That is about a 90-mile one-way trip to send our recyclables. And if our recyclables are 44% contamination, what we're doing is just trucking a whole half truckload of garbage across the state of Ohio every single time we have to pick up recyclables. And that is most of our recyclables. Occasionally, we also have paper and cardboard that makes it all the way to Cleveland before it gets sorted and then back out to get turned into something new again. We are actively working on getting a MRF, a material recovery facility in Lucas County. We've got some grant funding that's come through and making some good progress. Hopefully we'll see that within the next 2 or 3 years. That will drastically reduce the cost of recycling for all communities in Northwest Ohio. So good things are happening, and that will help with this transportation. Why not Detroit? Yes, we have before, and it's almost more of a decision by whoever our carrier is, our hauler. So Republic Services is who has the contract with the city of Toledo. Most of you, even if you don't live in the city of Toledo, have Republic Services, and their MRF is in Oberlin. Sometimes if you have Stevens or Waste Management, those are two of the other haulers in the area, and they do take some of their stuff up into Michigan. So here's my test for you. If you were here last time, you had like little clicker things where we were taking polls. I am not that sophisticated. If I do this for a high school or kids, I'm making do like thumbs up, yes, it's recyclable, thumbs down, no. But I don't know what my timing is, so I'm going to just run through them and let you know. These ones we've already talked about. Are they recyclable? Coat hangers, hoses, kids' toys. Man, I wish they were. Plastic hanger, yeah. So sometimes it's more of the can they get sorted appropriately at a sorting facility? And hangers are definitely a big no. They clog up the machinery, they get tangled up in things. They cannot go to a recycling facility, they can't be recycled for you. Now, if you're Target, hopefully you're taking all of these hangers and you're getting them in bulk and they're just hangers and you can send them to some places that will recycle them. Sometimes it's a matter of, do you have a lot of something and is it just that thing? Which we do sometimes. Like keep Toledo, Lucas County beautiful. You can't put a campaign sign, a yard sign in your recycling bin. We actually collect them after every election season, and we have a special place that we can send them when we have just campaign signs to get them recycled. We do the same thing with boat wrap. Right now, we're collecting boat wrap. If you've got a boat, if you're getting it out on the water, and you've got this huge giant piece of plastic covering it all winter long, there's no reason for that to go to the landfill. You as an individual can't recycle that, but we can collect a lot of it and then send it to a special recycler. So sometimes there's a difference between what's recyclable and what you can recycle at home. But these are all no. Try donating them if you can, especially those kids' toys. Styrofoam. Yes, no? Anybody? No. No, not recyclable. Curbside. You can't recycle it in your curbside container or at a county drop-off. So I like to say like curbside containers and county drop-off locations are normal recycling. Oh my goodness, that's bad. Recycling symbol, probably with a 6 on it. So the recycling symbols pretty much just tell you what kind of plastic it is. It doesn't 100% mean that it's recyclable, which does make things confusing. Yeah. Yeah, it does. So now you know though, styrofoam is not recyclable. Don't put it in your normal recycling. Yes. There is a place in town though that does take it. There are 2 types of styrofoam. And styrofoam is not even the right word for it. It's expanded polystyrene. Styrofoam is like calling it tissue Kleenex, I think. So there's food grade and then there's packaging styrofoam. Lot Industries in Toledo does take packaging styrofoam, like the big white stuff that you get in Amazon boxes, and they will recycle it at Lot Industries. So take it to them. Also, the city of Toledo just started this past weekend with their Clean Toledo events. Clean Toledo events Last weekend it was downtown. This coming weekend, it's at the zoo, and then it bounces around all over the city of Toledo all summer long. And they take all kinds of things. They take electronics and styrofoam and tires and household hazardous waste and paint. They do document shredding. They do lots and lots of things. So you can take your styrofoam to them as well. It is marketed to the city of Toledo. So the Clean Toledo events are marketed to Toledo residents. But they do not check IDs. They don't actually care where you live. If you live in Sylvania and you want to go to a Clean Toledo event and drop off your styrofoam and your paint, they would much rather you do that than for it to end up in a landfill or in a ditch somewhere. So you can all go to the Clean Toledo recycling events. But that's just a packaging styrofoam. The food grade stuff, so your egg cartons, your plates, your cups, reduce it first. Try not to use those things. There's actually no real reason to use styrofoam cups and plates, and you can buy eggs in cardboard. But if you are using that styrofoam, the closest place for you is Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is the only place that we know that takes food grade styrofoam and recycles it. These items, your chip bags, your juice pouches, here's a Solo cup, another item that I know has a recycling symbol on it, and your coffee pods, none of them are recyclable. There is a company though that is called TerraCycle. TerraCycle is a company that focuses on recycling hard to recycle things. You can go on their website. They recycle all sorts of stuff like toothpaste tubes and deodorant when you're done with it, and used razors and cigarette butts. But they also take these things. And we actually see a lot of schools starting to get TerraCycle boxes in their cafeterias, because this is a lot of the stuff that kids are taking to school with them. There's a couple companies that we know too that in their lunch break room, they've got a TerraCycle box. The zoo has a good TerraCycle program. If you drive in the Anthony Wayne Trail parking lot, right there by the gift shop, there's a big blue metal container. It says TerraCycle on it. You can go on their website and see what they're accepting. And the zoo teams actually will sort through it and they send it off to TerraCycle for recycling. So it's a good way to really cut down on your extra stuff. Start with normal recycling. TerraCycle is like the next step. Here's hazardous waste. Do we put household hazardous waste in your recycling bin? No. Do we want it in the landfill? We don't. It's hazardous waste. We don't want that in the landfill either. So what do you do with it? And maybe that's why we see it as a problem sometimes. People just don't know what to do with their household hazardous waste. I already mentioned one option, Clean Toledo events. Clean Toledo events will take household hazardous waste. Lucas County has a Lucas County Solid Waste Department as well. You can call them year round and take your household hazardous waste to them. You do have to make an appointment, but at least that's year round, where the Clean Toledo events are only during the summer. So that's most of your hazardous waste. There's a few that are a little bit easier. Paint is a little bit easier. You can take it to Habitat for Humanity. They will recycle it, and it'll actually come back to their store as new paint that they sell again. And people buy it, and it further supports their mission and the good work that Habitat does. Also, a little bit easier is your rechargeable batteries. Rechargeable batteries are a hazardous waste. So are your compact fluorescent light bulbs, the little squiggly ones. Don't throw rechargeable batteries or your squiggly light bulbs in the trash. You can take them back to some of your home improvement stores. So I would check locally, check your local Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's. Quite a few of them have a location in the front for rechargeable batteries, compact fluorescent light bulbs. Electronics are recyclable. There's lots and lots of good stuff in electronics. We want them recycled. Most people think of electronics that I'm going to recycle being a cell phone, a tablet, or a computer. Those things you can take back to Best Buy. But an actual electronics recycler, there's two that we recommend. One is AIM e-cycling, the other one is AccuShred. They will take anything that plugs in or has batteries. So Christmas lights, a coffee pot, those things they will take. They want those things and they can get a lot of valuable things out of them. The one that's always been hard is your old tube TVs. Tube TVs are another hazardous waste. The tubes in them have things that are considered a hazardous waste. So we don't want them in the landfill. If you want to get rid of them sustainably, take them to a Clean Toledo event. There are a few other places that you can take them, but you have to pay to get rid of them. At least at the Clean Toledo events, you do not have to pay. Textiles. I already mentioned that this is an item that you can recycle, but not curbside, not in your normal recycling. So what do you do with it? You donate it. Don't go to that gas station like random box that says put clothes in here. Nobody knows what those boxes are, where that stuff goes to. Pick a reputable place. Goodwill, Salvation Army, Easter Seals. Those locations are going to try to resell that item, which is good. Reusing is better than recycling anyways. But even if they cannot resell it, and you know that they cannot resell it, still donate it to them. They are supposed to, and in most cases do, pack up everything that they cannot resell, and they will send it to a textile recycler. Oh, here's a tough one. I got a Pringles container, freezer meal, some shredded paper, and a receipt. None of them are recyclable. I know. Okay, so look at a thing like a Pringles container. And if you cannot separate the items very well, like the different components, it's not going to get recycled. So my kids like recycling. My kids like recycling. They do. My kids like Pringles, is what I meant to say. And my job is recycling, and I have no idea how to recycle this thing. It's cardboard on the outside and foil on the inside and a metal ring at the bottom. None of those things come apart, so it is not recyclable. The freezer meal, what we run into sometimes with freezer meals is, or freezer boxes in general, is they have a plastic coating on them that keeps the food on the inside from getting freezer burnt, but it also makes it almost impossible to recycle. So what I like to do is what I call the scratch test. Scratch at it a little bit. If you get a film underneath your fingernail, it has got a plastic coating. Throw it in the garbage. It is just your freezer though. I always get somebody that says, well, I can scratch my milk carton and get a film under my finger. Well, that's more of a wax coating. Wax coating we can handle. Plastic coating we can't. So just focus on your freezer. If it seems like it's got a film on it, throw it in the garbage. Shredded paper is difficult, but not impossible. You cannot put it in your curbside recycling. I don't care who your recycler is. They don't want it in your curbside recycling. The only way to recycle shredded paper is one, take it to a shredding event. Clean Toledo does do shredding, so you can take your documents to them and they'll shred it and recycle it. But if you're shredding at home, put it in a brown bag, like a brown paper bag, roll it up. You can put a couple staples in it, that's fine, but it has to go to a county recycling drop-off location and put it in with the paper. You can't put it curbside. Republic Services doesn't want it, but the county can handle it at their drop-off locations. And then a receipt. If I had college students in here, I would say this is good homework. Go home and Google receipts and the amount of carcinogens that's on them. They are horrible. If somebody says, would you like a receipt with that? The answer is no, don't even touch them. Receipts are covered in carcinogens. So don't touch them, throw them away. And we definitely don't want them recycled and turned into construction paper and sent off to our kindergarten class. So say no to receipts. Junk mail, that's a phone book. I was surprised a few months ago when I got a phone book at my house. I didn't know those were a thing still. First thing to do with your phone book, look all around the phone book for whatever the email address or the website or the phone number is to opt out of the phone book, so you don't get it anymore. Same thing with junk mail. A lot of your like red plums and town savers, you can opt out of those. So try reducing first. Even the blue bag from the Blade that comes on Sunday that a lot of people don't want. If you don't want it, you can call their circulations department. Actually, don't call them. They'll ignore you if you call them. Email their circulations department, and then like 2 weeks later, reference that same email and say, I already emailed you about this and I'm still getting it. And if you've got that string of information, then you can eventually, they'll stop delivering that blue bag to you. So that helps. Softbound books, you can recycle those curbside as well. So try reducing first and then recycle. This one confuses me. I understand that paper is made out of wood. That does not mean you can recycle sticks. We see a lot of yard waste in our recycling bins around Toledo. Maybe it's just because people have a lot of it and they don't know what to do with it all. That fills up their garbage can. Now they put it in the recycling bin. I'm not sure, but don't put yard waste, sticks, leaves, paint, grass clippings, things like that in your recycling bin. That's compostable. You can just mow it into your grass. It's actually healthy for your grass if you just mow it in. But if you have an excessive amount, wait for almost every community has a curbside leaf pickup and a brush pickup. So wait for that or take it to a location. Cleanwood Recycling has a location in Sylvania and they have a location down in Waterville. You can take it to them and they take yard waste year round. So there's a couple options, but don't put it in your recycling. This one I like to put in here because yes, these things are recyclable. Everybody has a recycling bin in their kitchen. And a lot of recyclables come out of your bathroom and your laundry room. So make sure that you still focus on those two areas. Your items still need to be rinsed out a few times. Don't try to rinse out your shampoo or your hand soap so many times until you don't have bubbles anymore, because you might not ever get to that point. But maybe make the kids or the grandkids do it. It's fun. It fills up the sink with bubbles. Rinse about 2 or 3 times. Put the lid of the cap back on. Put it in the recycling bin. And the only time that I say throw away the cap is if it's got a pump on it. So if it's got a pump action on it, it kind of goes along with like the Pringles jar. The pump has something in it other than plastic. So throw that piece away. Probably got some springs in there. And that can go in the garbage, but the rest of the container can go in the recycling bin. This one, I guess not a new addition anymore, a new addition a year or so ago. Is it recyclable? No, it is not. If for some reason you would like to still wear them, absolutely still wear them. But for the love of all things environmental, put it in the garbage when you're done with it. Not a single one of us didn't go to Walmart or Kroger a year ago, 2 years ago, and not see them blowing through the parking lot like tumbleweed. They were everywhere. So yes, they're important. They're good to wear when we need them. Just make sure that they get in the garbage. They are not recyclable and they need to go where they need to be, which is garbage. And then plastic bags. Oh, I think I have more conversations about plastic bags in my day-to-day job than any other item. Think back to the slide I had of all the machinery. If you put plastic bags or any sort of plastic film in your recycling bin, it hits that machinery and gets clogged off. And the workers have to shut things down and rip out all that plastic bag and plastic film. It costs money, actually puts them in kind of a dangerous situation. Don't put plastic bags in your recycling bin. But also, we talked about already, your recyclables have to be loose. If all of these machines are trying to move all your recyclables in different directions and all of your recyclables are trapped in a bag, you put all your recyclables in a bag at home, you tied it up with a nice little bow and you put it in the recycling bin, those items are trapped. The workers do not have the time or the desire to open that bag up and see what's inside. It will get snagged and it'll be put in the pile that goes back to the landfill. So if you're bagging your recyclables, there's a very good chance of going to the landfill. You can recycle them though. Where do you take your plastic bags? Any grocery store, Kroger, Meijer, Target, Kohl's, almost any grocery store or other store has a place in the front to recycle plastic film. It is not just plastic bags, it is plastic film. So the wrapping around your toilet paper, the wrapping around your paper towels, the thick plastic around your case of water bottles, bubble wrap, a lot of your Amazon envelopes, so like the blue and white ones, they will actually have a recycling symbol on it that says store drop off. Store drop off means back to your grocery store, in with your plastic bags. Lots and lots of plastic film can go back to the grocery store. Here's a little bit of a snapshot of plastic and what all those numbers mean. Most of us have Republic Services. Republic Services says they take all plastics 1 through 7. There are some places out there that will only recycle 1s, 2s, 4s, 5s, and 7s, which gets us a little bit confusing. If you can only recycle 1s, 4s, 5s, and 7s. Luckily for us, we don't have to worry about that. There are some recyclers out there that only take 1s and 2s, which cuts out a lot of other plastics. So it's good for us that we have the ability to recycle everything. If you have something that's not Republic Services, if you have a Stevens, a Waste Management, a Plum Brothers, there's a few smaller ones around town, check with them, see what plastic they are taking. So you're putting the right stuff in the recycling bin. And you can kind of see what these items are turning into. What we run across mostly in our day-to-day life are 1s and 2s. Those are the things that's in your refrigerator. Also 5s, which are your yogurt containers, your margarine, your butter, your cottage cheese. Those are all 5s. A lot of your plastic bags, your plastic films are 4s. Styrofoam is going to be in your 6th category. 7 is just other, all kinds of stuff. When we recycle plastic, what we want it to turn into is these plastic little beads that are clear. And the harder and harder it is to get it to turn into those plastic beads, which then go out to other places and turn back, they get melted and turned back into new plastic. But the harder and harder it is to turn it into this product, the harder and harder it is to recycle it. So that's why like that red Solo cup is impossible to recycle because one, it's a brittle plastic. It's hard to turn it back into any other sort of plastic. And also it's very colored, so it's hard to get it clear. Nobody wants it. So we want it to be nice and easy to recycle into. The more color you get into it, black plastic, a lot of times you go out to like Costco and get the rotisserie chicken. It's got a black plastic base that's like a number 5. It's got a recycling symbol on it. I can guarantee that's not getting recycled. So here's the same slide, except now I've got the bottom, which tells you what it turns into. Plastic ones turn into new bottles. That is actually recycling. It's a plastic water bottle. It comes back as a plastic water bottle. Same thing for 2s. It comes back as new milk jugs, new laundry detergent jugs. It is actually being recycled. It's one thing, it comes back as that same thing again. What you'll notice is everything else doesn't have the word new in it really anywhere. It doesn't come back as that same thing anymore. That's not really recycling. What we call that is more downcycling. So it is something, it turns into something else, and then maybe another thing or 2 until it becomes a plastic that we cannot do anything with ever again. What it turns into is like the composite plastic decking, or a kid's fork, or a park bench, or a picnic table. It's a hard composite plastic, and it is that for eternity. If you have the option of buying something that's in a plastic 1 or 2 versus plastic 5 or 6, pick the 1 or 2. Those things are well recycled, everything else downcycled. There's a little bit of innovation right now around 5s. Right now, there is no FDA approved way to take a yogurt cup and turn it into a new product that is food grade. So you can't take a food grade plastic 5 and turn it back into something again that you can use in your kitchen. But there's some good innovation actually coming out of Columbus where we hopefully can get more 5s recycled, FDA approved into new food grade plastic. But let's keep on talking about plastic, picking on plastic. Why? Because it deserves to be picked on. Here's another graph for you. Back in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, we weren't making that much plastic. Somewhere around the 80s and 90s, we as a society decided plastic is amazing. Let's package everything in plastic and wrap everything in plastic and make everything out of plastic. And the amount of plastic that we were making just skyrocketed. There was a study done not too long ago, and they wanted to decide what's happening to all this plastic. Now that we're making so much more, where is it all going? They found out about 50% is going to the landfill. That's not all bad because some of it is unrecyclable plastic, that bucket, that kid's toy, that styrofoam. But they found out that less than 10% is actually being recycled. We would like to see that number go up, but then they said their study is done. Again, if I had college students in here, I'd say, you know, if you did a research project and you only found 60% of what you were looking for, you probably wouldn't do a very good job on your grade. They said, we don't know, but we do know. Where is all that plastic? You guys all probably know. Where'd it go? In the ocean. It's in the ocean. Absolutely it is. So in the ocean, we have these giant currents. And what they like to do is just kind of push things into the middle. That's how we get those giant trash patches out there in the ocean. Now, if it's paper or cardboard, it's going to decompose. You're driving down the street and you throw your napkin from McDonald's out the window. That's bad. That's litter. Don't do it, but it's going to decompose. Even glass and aluminum will eventually decompose. It takes thousands of years. It's going to take a long time, but it will decompose. Plastic does not. It only becomes smaller and smaller pieces of plastic. We always hear about plastic in the ocean. We probably saw pictures of that turtle with a straw stuck in his nose, or hear about whales eating plastic bags, or birds tangled in plastic. We know that it's causing problems in the ocean, but it is every single body of water. Here in the Great Lakes, up in Lake Superior, there are about 7,000 particles of plastic per kilometer squared, but the lakes all flow from one to the other. By the time you get down to Lake Erie, you're looking at 46,000 particles of plastic per square kilometer. Lake Ontario, don't eat fish. out of Lake Ontario. There's a lot of plastic there. And from Lake Ontario, it just goes out into the ocean, continuing to cause more problems. As I mentioned, it doesn't really decompose, just becomes smaller pieces of plastic. So what happens? A plastic bag gets out in the ocean. It gets hit by waves. It gets UV radiation. It gets brittle. It falls apart, but just into smaller pieces of plastic. That's where we get the term microplastics from. Microplastics get into the food supply for the fish. The fish eat the microplastics. Now we've eaten the fish and we're eating plastic as well. When I do this for younger than college students, I would get some kid that says, I don't eat a red lobster. I don't like fish. It's not just fish that we get from the ocean or not just fish that we're getting plastic from. Here's a study that was done on sea salt. The average American, one, probably has too much salt in their diet, but two, gets about 180 particles of plastic per year in their salt. Beer in the Great Lakes region, not Great Lakes Brewery specifically, not picking on them, but in the Great Lakes region, it's a big business. And there was a study done that the average adult gets about 520 particles of plastic through their beer. But look at tap water. You actually need tap water. 5,000 particles of plastic every single year. The statistic right now is that you are consuming about a credit card worth of plastic every single week from the food that you eat and from what you're drinking. Big business saw this and they said, you know what you should do instead of drinking tap water? You should drink bottled water. That makes no sense. The problem of having plastic in your water is not going to be solved by putting your water in plastic. But they had to do a new study. They found that 93% of all bottled water has microplastics in it. Some of it is bigger than 100 microns. That's about the width of a human hair. It's in there, it's floating around. But what we're finding is the smaller stuff is what's really concerning. The particles that are less than 100 microns, because those are so small that when you consume them, they don't just pass through your digestive system. They're small enough to get into your bloodstream and circulated throughout your entire body and deposited into all of your major organs. And here's another homework assignment too. We're just starting to figure out what some of the ramifications are of eating and consuming all of that plastic and what it's doing to us. And it's not good. So what are we gonna do? Whew. If you were here last time, interesting example of restoring the Dust Bowl. I like this because it's very similar to another example that I often share, which is restoring the ozone layer. You guys remember when there was a hole in the ozone layer? It was there. It was big. It was an issue. It was a catastrophe. Government and industry worked together to make regulations to change things, to get rid of the products that were causing the ozone to be depleted. The scientific community led the charge. There was a lot of public awareness and education that happened to get the general public on board with making changes. Same thing happened with our example from last time about global warming. The government and farmers worked together. Scientific community led the way. We planted 2.3 billion trees. Lots of education, lots of awareness to get the public on board and doing the right thing as well. A little bit of a similarity there, what we needed to happen. So what do we need to do to fix some of the issues with the massive amount of garbage that we're creating? Well, we need government and industry to work together. We need massive changes. We need to continue to pursue growth, but we need the government to make sure that we've got the right infrastructure for recycling. We need industry to make sure they're making products that can actually be recycled. But we also do need individuals to kind of lead the way. They need to demand that businesses create products that are recyclable and made from recyclable products. If you're just putting your plastic water bottles in the recycling bin, but not buying things made out of recycled plastic, you're not actually recycling. Recycling is putting it in the recycling bin and then buying it back again. Demand that your local government provides the recycling programs, that we build a recycling facility, a MRF, locally in Lucas County, that we buy local, buy recycled, and vote as well. I think this one was actually mentioned last time as well. If you are concerned about the environment, do your research and vote in a way that demonstrates that. The more value that we can place on recycling and the products that are made out of recyclable items, the more industry and the more government is going to support creating more of those items and support the infrastructure needed to recycle things. I don't know how scientific this study was. I'll leave it up there for you to digest. Hopefully, you have moved out of being very confused about recycling. And hopefully, you've also learned a little bit about why it's important to recycle and why you should be recycling appropriately. And you've done a very good job of not asking me lots and lots of questions along the way and pointing into the end. Do we have questions that I can answer now? Yes.
I have two quick ones.
Yes.
I went to one of these lectures, 5 or 6 years ago, and they said that, wasn't you, and they said that you couldn't have any water whatsoever, or any liquid whatsoever after you rinsed out like a water bottle.
Yeah.
Does that still hold true?
It does not. So the question was, does it have to be absolutely dry to recycle it? And the answer is no. And I think the current thing coming out of the recycling industry is a teaspoon is smaller one. A teaspoon of water can be in it. Now, or liquid in general. If you're rinsing it out, shake out the excess. If it's got a couple drops in there, you're not going to get to that threshold. What we see that sometimes more difficult is like public space recycling, which I think that we need public space recycling. If I'm walking downtown Toledo in front of the Imagination Station in Promenade Park, I should be able to recycle my water bottle, my pop can. But that's where we see sometimes people throwing away, some pop, some soda, and it's got a bunch in there. That's a little bit harder process. That's going to probably do some contamination along the way. So try to rinse it out. Get as much water out as you can, put the litter cap back on. It doesn't have to be absolutely dry.
Is there a push towards businesses to stop using plastic bags?
So, no, there's not.
That's too bad.
It is. And what we need to rely on is the actual businesses. So almost every single business has a sustainability plan, and they want to eliminate plastic bags by the year 2032 or some such thing. They're all too far away. One, I mean, we need to make these decisions now. And it is really coming out of the businesses, the industries themselves. Kroger has a sustainability plan. Meijer has a sustainability plan. They want to get rid of plastic bags. They're just not doing it quick enough. And it's probably because they're not getting pushed by the government to do so. There was a couple communities in Ohio that were trying to do plastic bag bans. A couple small communities. The big one was Cuyahoga County, Cleveland. They wanted to ban all plastic bags. Out of the Ohio government, the state government, they said, no, you can't do that. If you can go to Kroger in Perrysburg and get plastic bags, you should be able to go to Maumee and go to Kroger and get plastic bags. One community can't ban them while the other is still offering them. Who cares? I mean, if Perrysburg wanted to ban them and Sylvania wanted to ban them, but Toledo can't, that should be okay. It's all lobbying. So we're seeing sometimes the government go in the wrong direction with plastic bags. So take your plastic bags to the grocery store, or your reusable bags to the grocery store. Don't use plastic.
Instead of banning them, why can't you have various charge for them? And I'm talking like maybe a quarter each plastic bag.
Yeah.
And see how quickly people would bring their own.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a great meeting with Churchill's recently. Churchill's wanted to improve their sustainability. And I said, what are you going to do about plastic bags? And they said, well, we give a discount if you bring your reusable bags back in. And I said, nobody knows that. No one knows that. I've told lots of people. And I said, you need to, this Earth Day, April 22nd, promote that if you are going to Churchill's and you take your reusable bags, you're going to get a discount. So discount's nice. The charging, some places do charge as well. Nobody that I know of locally. But I like Aldi. I mean, if you go to Aldi, you know that you're not going to have a plastic bag. They get away with it just fine. Costco's a little bit different because nothing that they sell is small enough to go in a plastic bag. But again, that's another one that you just know you're not going to use a plastic bag. Why can't everybody else just be the same way? Yeah, and paper bags, I mean, paper bags have their pros and cons for sure. Reusable bags are always the best way to go, but paper bags are a good option.
Target gives you a credit too.
Target gives you credit?
If you bring your own bag, you get 5 cents per bag.
Mhm.
What do you do with cords? Like cable cords? and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so electronics recycler.
That's part of
Yep, AIM e-cycling, they're kind of north of Toledo, they would take cords, and then also the Clean Toledo events.
okay. Do you drink the city water?
Yes, yes. So, I mean, a lot of people will ask like, okay, so there's microplastics in your tap water, but there's also microplastics in your bottled water. They actually did a study that they found that even like the friction of opening your plastic water bottle, there's enough friction there that microplastics are falling in your plastic water bottle. So what do? You can't drink anything. Your tap water, even the city of Toledo tap water, is better than a plastic water bottle. Drink the tap water, and if you can, get a good filter for it. The filter that is like the little one that fits in your fridge, not really cutting it. It's good for other stuff, but it's not getting the really small microplastics. Get a little bit of a better one, and then you're doing a good job. So tap water with a filter, which is what I drink.
Okay. So the plastic cups that aren't red, like a clear one, are okay?
A clear plastic cup is more recyclable than a red Solo cup or a blue Solo cup. But I want to say more recyclable. Not all the way. So what happens sometimes is we send all of this plastic number 457 to Republic Services. Republic Services is going to do a good, they're going to try their hardest to find a place to send that plastic to, but it might sit on a pallet at their warehouse for a few months, and there's more of that numbers 3, 4, 6, 7 out there than there are outlets for it. So sometimes they do have to send it to the landfill if it's a 5 plastic, because they just don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
I just want to know, are there any grants, programs out there to kind of like encourage businesses or a person or a school to create a product that you can made out of recyclables?
Yes. Yeah. So the Ohio EPA does a grant at the end of every year. It usually gets launched around November and it's due early January the next year. It is a grant for governments, a grant for nonprofits. They do have a higher institution school grant program, but they also have a market development grant for businesses to. They kind of need a government sponsor to work with them, but yes, there's lots of good options for that.
I get very discouraged driving in my neighborhood when I see what a lot of my neighbors are putting in their recycle bins. I see these things in plastic bags and also other things that I know don't belong. So I'm just wondering what that does to my recycle contribution.
Yeah,
And I have no idea how to do anything with this.
sure. So there's this rumor that's out there, and it's really just a rumor, that if your neighbor is doing a bad job recycling, why should you even recycle? Because it's all going to landfill. That is not happening. It's all about percentages. Back in 2016, we were at 44% contamination. That is bad. If we can get down to 20%, 15% contamination, that is where we want to be. There's always going to be some contamination in the recycling industry. The tape that is around your box, that is a packaging tape, is contamination. Do I want you all to take the tape off? If you can easily, yes. But if it's hard to take off, pick your battles. Don't make recycling so hard that you don't want to do it. The little tiny window that's in your junk mail, that's the plastic film, that's contamination. It's okay, throw it in there. We can handle some contamination in the recycling industry. We'll get rid of that stuff. It's more when it's 30, 40% contamination that is bad. So if your neighbor is at 60%, 75% contamination, that just means that you need to be at like 10%. That way it balances out. It balances out. For a truck to go to the landfill instead of the recycling facility, you really need like a whole neighborhood to do a bad job. There's been an occasional, like somebody throws a half a can of paint in the recycling bin, and then that kind of contaminates the whole load. That's happened, but that's kind of more of your outlier. Chances are most of your recyclables, even if your neighbor's doing a bad job, are still getting recycled. Mike.
So, just thinking the idea out loud.
Uh-huh.
our recyclable contamination is going over by Cleveland,
Yeah,
right? Then that 40% of waste goes to the Cleveland landfill. And road landfill, right? So we should get more years on our land.
in theory, yes, yeah. But it's also expensive. It's a lot of transportation.
We don't use the single recycling. We
Yeah.
Go to the other ones, but you said that the shredded paper can't be sent to anything but the clean Toledo thing.
No, to a county drop-off location.
So, okay, so I can put it in a bag and
Yeah.
put it in there.
Yeah,
Okay, then on those county recycling things, don't they go right to recycling? Or do they still go to that intermediary?
yeah. So, so all the curbside recycling for the city of Toledo, Sylvania, Maumee, Perrysburg, even Bowling Green, all go to what's called the transfer facility, which is by the casino. If you drive in 75 North, you pass the casino, you go over the Maumee River, Anderson silos are on one side, the other side is the transfer facility. Now that they did the new exit, you can almost like look right into it. It's got two big bays. One side is Toledo, and that's always got more contamination in it. The other bay is everybody else, which usually has less contamination in it. And so everything gets unloaded there, then it gets smushed together a little bit, not really compacted, but smushed together on a truck, and then it goes out to open. The county drop-off locations are a little bit different because they have their own trucks and they can kind of keep things separated because you're putting paper in one spot and cardboard in another spot and all your containers in another spot. All of your containers from the county drop-off locations are going to the same transfer facility and getting mixed in with everything else. Paper and cardboard, though, the county gets more money from the paper and the cardboard if they take it to Gateway Recycling, which is in Oregon. So that's why the shredded paper is different for the county drop-off locations because Gateway Recycling can take shredded paper. So at a county drop-off location, your paper cardboard is only going to Oregon, which is better for everybody. It's a lot less transportation, and the county sees some money from it. And that's why they take the shredded. So that's the
But I
difference.
can't put the shredded in with my newspapers.
Yes,
I can't.
Yeah. yeah. So shred your paper at home, put it in a brown paper bag, staple it shut, roll it shut, whatever you want. Put it in the paper bin at the county drop-off location.
But not in the same paper bag as my newspaper.
No, keep it separate. So the newspapers, you shouldn't do it, you should just throw in there.
Right, I do.
Yeah, just throw them in, don't bundle your newspapers, don't put them in a bag, just throw them in there loose and then put just shredded paper in a bag. Yep. And then just so everybody else knows, if you're not going to a county drop-off location, she mentioned the Clean Toledo events. When I say about the Clean Toledo events is they're gonna actually shred the paper for you. And then they send it to Gateway. They send it to Gateway Recycling.
Can we recycle greeting cards and gift wrap?
Yeah, so that's tough. So with wrapping paper, if it's cheap wrapping paper, the paper fibers are too thin. It's like trying to recycle a paper towel or a Kleenex. The paper fibers are so tiny that you can't recycle them into good quality new paper. So cheap wrapping paper is a no. Expensive wrapping paper usually has some sort of glossy plastic film on it, or it's got silver reflective, or got sparkles and glitter on it. So that's a no. So you have to find this like random middle ground, yeah. So it's tough. Now, luckily, there's a great nonprofit called Keep Toledo Lucas County Beautiful that around the holidays does partner with about a dozen local stores that we sell 100% recyclable wrapping paper. And so you can go on our website and see where those locations are around the holidays and go to those stores and buy them. And then we get a little bit of a kickback fundraiser from that. But if you focus on like a craft paper, kind of butcher block paper base for your wrapping paper, then that's okay. Same thing with cards. If it's got any sort of glitter, any sort of foil, any sort of sparkles on it, it is a no. Typically the back is okay. So you could rip off the back and put that in the recycling bin. But yeah, just take a look at that front. If it seems like it's just paper, if it's a normal, not too expensive card, it's probably gonna be recycled. Yep,
Did you say you couldn't recycle an oil container even though it has the one symbol on it or the two symbols?
what's the container?
Oil,
Oil.
like you buy a quart of oil?
Yeah,
And for the benefit of the folks online, can you repeat that question?
yeah, so the question is like an oil container. Is it a metal can?
Oh, it's a plastic.
So like more like a gas can looking container.
Like a quart, like a
Oh,
quart of oil.
yeah. So, I'm gonna go with no. Just, yeah, you can't recycle it, just because of that it had oil in it. Which is hard to make sure that it's all the way clean. Like if you use like a good dish, like a good Dawn oil cutting, grease cutting, and you cleaned it out, I'd be okay with that. Yeah, but if it's got a little bit of oil in it, we don't want that. It's gonna be hard to clean.
I have another question too. At my recycling center, it lists right on the container that they only want 1 and 2. So that's all you put in there, 1 and 2, correct?
Where are you taking it to?
So, Kroger and Waterville.
Yeah. So that's a Lucas County Solid Waste Department location. And the way they explain it is 1s and 2s are always going to be recyclable. So on their permanent signage, they put just 1s and 2s. But if you go on their website, it says they will take 1s, 2s, 4s, 5s, and 7s. But you're talking to me right now, I will tell you that they will take 1 through 7. So it depends on what the market's doing and what the recycling is doing and who's taking it. And there's kind of some factors there. But right now it's going to Republic Services, and Republic Services is taking 1 through 7.
So pick 1 through 7. That whole building, my mine's go on, like high coke and 6 and selling and all that. I haven't been recycling it because it only says only 1 through 2.
Yeah. So and they say that their website is always up to date, where they're saying 1, 2, 4, 5, 7. But you can put 3s and 6s and then 2. But focus just on your kitchen, your bathroom, your laundry room. It's got to be a container of some sort. If you find a recycling symbol, like I said, on a 5-gallon bucket or a kid's toy or a coat hanger, those things aren't recyclable. It's got to be a container that's usually coming out of your kitchen, laundry room, bathroom.
I had a question about computer recycling that you have in your city events.
Yes.
I do have a couple sitting around. I'm kind of concerned with what's on the computer. I guess I'm wondering, bringing those to a recycling, one of your events,
Yeah.
should those all be, hard drive all be erased and everything? Is that necessary, or what happens to the computer when they get dropped off?
Sure. So the reason that we partner with AIM E-Cycling, and AIM E-Cycling is the vendor that's at the Clean Toledo events, and who we would say, if you wanted to just drop it off somewhere, take it to AIM, is they've got all the right certifications that say, one, they're going to do the right thing with the item. It's not going to end up in a third world country in a ditch somewhere. They're actually going to recycle it. But 2, they've got all the right certifications that say that they're doing the right thing with the data management as well. And the first thing that happens is they're clearing everything out and erasing everything. There are other good electronic recyclers out there, but they haven't jumped through all of the hoops to get all of the right certifications. AIM E-Cycling is the only one in town that is. So 100% confident with them. The other ones are good for things maybe that don't have confidential information on them. Your Christmas lights and your coffee pots.
Thank you very much, Adam. We can take maybe one more question. Anybody have anything else? that they
Yeah.
want to-
Oh, I got like 3 more.
Mine
right.
is just a compliment. The recycling events for the city are always run really, really well.
Yeah.
It's quick, it's fast, it's all separate little, it's just great.
If you have things to recycle at a Green Toledo event, my recommendation is don't go to the one at the zoo this weekend. We see usually about 800 cars at that one, and they will snake through the parking lot back and forth, and sometimes still get out on the Anthony Trail because there's a lot of people that go to that one, and they run all summer long, so you can always find a different one.
Getting there early doesn't count.
No, people are already lined
They
up.
line up hours ahead.
Yes, it's a crazy one. It's usually the first one.
They check ID at the Hoffman Road landfill.
They do check IDs at the Hoffman Road landfill. So if you are not a city resident, they occasionally have free dump days at the Hoffman Road landfill, but if you're not a city resident, you have to pay